Hi everyone, Evelyn here from Twin Flames 3344. I have a read here for you from yesterday, and I want to preface that just with a little bit of information about the last month. So I have a lot of information and messages and downloads to bring you from all of July, but right when I was going to bring that in my usual video for YouTube, about mid-month, I started having some back issues. My shoulder, neck, back triangle on the right went into spasm, which it has done before. I have an old injury that gets triggered every now and then. But it led into a collective wounding, and there's a lot of physical purging. I went through a 12-hour stone experience last month as well. So there's a lot of physical purging going on. So two of the topics that came up prior to this read, the thorax, so the chest area, and the name Ava, A-V-A, along with the Newton's cradle, which Newton's cradle has been coming up in a lot of different ways. So Newton's cradle is the three balls in the middle with one ball on either side, right? Where you pull the ball on one end, it hits the three balls in the middle, resonating through to the other side, and then the energy affecting the other side and the other ball. So not only is it coming up as AVA, it's coming up as 25, 26, and 27, the years, as well as the hand, where the thumb is the first ball, the three middle fingers are the three balls, and then the pinky is the final ball. And that stuff will all come up in some of my prior reads from this month, which I will get to. It's just I'm much better. I finally slept through the night, 2 nights, because I wasn't able to sleep for like a week straight through the night because I kept waking up in nerve pain, and it was worse when I was lying down than when I was up during the day. So now I'm finally starting to feel normal again. I just don't want to push my luck with it, and I don't want to stress my neck too much because it is bringing in some of the burning from my old back injury as well in my tail, which is relating to the collective wounding as well, and what I called the iron cross, which goes across the wings, like the cross down the back and then across the wings. So part of that comes up in this read today, which was, like I said, from yesterday. I woke up yesterday to that news about the tsunami coming into Hawaii and the West Coast, which of course it didn't. The waves didn't reach there, but we did have an 8.8 earthquake off Russia. I think it was the night of the 29th. And seeing that headline was terrible in the morning because I have, friends who live in Hawaii and California, as well as my brothers in California, that alerted me to something that didn't even happen. So be aware of what you're reading and the headlines, that kind of thing. I mean, I didn't get upset about it or anything, but, it's not something you want to see first thing in the morning. I've been having a lot of dreams waking up. I don't usually remember my dreams. In this past month, I've been remembering so many of my dreams, some strange ones. And we'll get to that in a next read, too, when I start going back and trying to do a more significant read. Okay. And we had some crazy storms this month as well. Just a lot of physical energy. And that's reflected in the earth, too, with all of these quakes and floods and fires and tsunamis, all that kind of stuff. There's definitely a physical purge. All right, so the read that you're seeing here, it starts with the underlying energy of the Nine of Pentacles. This is also one of 3 new decks that I bought, so I'm testing them out, and I really like this deck. The energy is great. But it starts out with the underlying energy of the Nine of Pentacles after the day before the 5 of Cups. So that was showing me that it's continuing on from the message I'd done the day before, which I will get that one out to you as well. The cards that came out were the World, the Ace of Cups, 2 of Cups, Page of Swords, the 4 of Swords, the Knight of Cups, and the 5 of Wands. As the world dances, as the Holy Communion meets the Holy Grail, the 2 of Cups in the dance of the Swan, big love 1-to-1, as the Page of Swords is upgraded or upgraded messages in 5D connection. The Knight of Swords at rest The Knight's Tomb, quote unquote, that also came up, which I ended up looking up, and that actually was discovered at that same time. So the Knight's Tomb came up, awakes to or as the Knight of Cups to fight for their Nine of Pentacles, whether that's a sovereign catch, right? Perhaps the person of their dreams, or their own sovereignty, laying down swords, but willing also to compete for the girl, as we do have competitive energies today with the Five of Wands and the Seven of Cups, which I did post on Instagram as well. Or maybe facing conflict with her. The handle of the flame. So again, here's that energy of the Iron Cross and the handle of the flame, which would be, I'll show you a picture of that as my voice is getting a little broken up. So the throat chakra here is being affected as well. So the first card here is the Three of Pentacles. Work at the gate with two hermits and mediation, or sovereign honored perhaps congratulatory achievements going on here. There could be graduations this summer. Through a portal with the Three of Cups and the Knight of Swords and the High Priestess or higher self. There's a lot of Pisces energy here with Virgo as well, which is the Pisces axis, and that's the North and South node right now. Or the Knight of Cups comes for the Nine of Pentacles at this gathering of work and celebration. Friends, where the Knight of Swords then comes for the High Priestess or higher self, and the Knight of Wands in a private ceremony. Lovers out in the cold, a special portal just for them, with a quote-unquote afterglow, as the Six of Cups, the innocent children, as one rose is presented to the littler one in direct alignment with the sun. There could be some long-term pain ending here, and I did feel like I was revisiting my old injury for whatever reason. They're taking me back to it to understand it better and to allow it to leave, and ending a long-term pain in taking a risk to hang at dusk, and that was at 11:11, or with some back pain and needing to lay down and come clean about your perspective and or theirs, or just seeing something from a different perspective, as the Ace of Wands and Ace of Pentacles then come in to be offered. Offers of growth and a new life, or perhaps cropping bamboo and or paying for it. The numbers keep coming up very interestingly, as that earthquake notice I'm just noticing it now was 8.8. And what did I just look at? I just looked at something else that was 88. So Lionsgate's coming up very strongly. What did I just look at? Oh, I can't remember. If it comes up, I'll let you know. But also in the numbers of the cards that I've been doing this week, it keeps bringing up major throughways in my area, like major highways or just lighted, major throughways. And when I bring up things about myself, it's not just about me, it's about a collective energy. So they use my personal information to get me to understand these messages, but it's not just about me. I don't want you to think this is just about me. This is a message for all of you, okay? So some of the numbers that have come up in this read were 73 and 611, but in the read prior to this, 73, 611, and 232 came up again, which is very interesting. It doesn't happen like that all the time. So and notice the Nine of Pentacles, the underlying energy, is also the number 77. And the numerology is from Numerology and the Divine Triangle, which is something I learned in my 20s. So it's very innate for me at this point. The Chariot of Temperance was coming up here. So the Chariot, which can represent ascension, but also that powerful movement forward of temperance, which has to do with patience and balance, and the angelic realm, as well as a higher love. The Wounded Warrior to the Knight of Swords in a leap of faith at the 5D station, where then 14 and 5 both came up in this number sequence, and 14/5 is the Temperance card, but also 5 has to do with the Hierophant and also freedom and change and excitement. So this energy of 14/5 in the Chariot, so the angels in the Chariot, the Patient Hierophant and Freedom Key, with 2 eagles guarding the 6 of Cups, the Innocence today, and yesterday was 46 of the 6 of Cups. 2 mothers guide, and I was getting the 2 mothers as Earth and Terra. 2 mothers guide the children through the Golden Gate, which is also, the GG is the 6/6, which is the 2 spirals, and that can also represent the rose gold mother's heart, which the heart is literally 2 spirals coming together. So the 66 also be coming up very significantly this month. So the 2 mothers guide the children through the Golden Gate, the spirals of the rose gold mother's heart. The 6D leap from the 5D station. Remember, you get to the 5D, it's basically a jump off point. I'm in Philadelphia, so that would be like 30th Street Station for me, where you can go in any direction you want at that point. The 5D station in the Chariot with the 698 pod. Now, when I bring up the 698 pod, it's the 2 P's in the pod, right? When you put 6 and 9 together, you get a pod with the 2 circles in it, the 2 P's in the pod. But I've also been reporting to you how this 698 pod turns inside out, through and through to the other side, becoming 96, which is also the 8, but on an angle with ties, like a bow tie. But it represents the tying of the 2, so there's no need to dance anymore, you know, like they're fixed together, they're corded. The Chariots of the Patient Angel and the Master of the Hidden House, 2 6 of Cups sovereign keys into 1 698 pod, or 2 Fools in Love. As the eagles, remember Earth and Terra were coming up as the mothers, are escorting the 5, quote unquote, to the 4/6, quote unquote. And 5 to 4/6 is the middle, right? It's 4/6 is missing the 5 in the middle. So the wounded warrior, the Knight of Cups, leaps to the 5D station, and the 6 of Cups are brought back through the Golden Gate, right? Because the 6 of Cups is a very high vibrational energy. The 6 of Cups inner children here, perhaps of the past life or just your own innocence, brought back through the Golden Gate of the 6D, right? Because there's already people very familiar with the 6D and being aligned with the 6D and coming back and forth, to align at the 5D station, coming back to the middle, coming to pick them up at the station. So let's say someone drives to the station, and then at that station you can go to any dimension, so you're not really going anywhere, but then someone picks you up from another dimension. That kind of energy was coming up here, coming to pick them up. In the Chariot of the gold coin and unity or Christ consciousness, ready to flip inside out, through and through, to a new life of me and you. As the next set of numbers, and they were the same numbers but set up in different ways with these cards, because, for example, you know, the Jack is considered, or the Page is considered 11 in this deck, where in numerology in the Divine Triangle it has its own number. So I did the numbers both ways. So the first set of numbers that I was reporting on has to do with the full 2-digit numerology numbers. But the second set was just the single digits that were literally on the cards as I read them. And the underlying energy was the 9 of the Hermit, and then 33, 122, 125, 610, which is another Philadelphia area code, 71211. The Hermit and the 2 eagles, or in other words, the 4D bridge, and then 12, 21, 25 literally came up in this sequence, and the 610 area code, and 610 can mean something else to you as well, in the Chariot 1 to 1, from 6 to 7 plus 61, with source support between them, 1 to 1. So it's coming up as 6 to 7, which 67 is the Knight of Pentacles, but it's the space between or within them, the 6 of the Lovers and the 7 of the Chariot, and getting from the Lovers into the chariot. And the 10 was between them, just like the 4, 5, 6. This was coming up as 6, 10, 7. So like kind of 6, 6.5, and 7. Number 10 was coming up as that, which is the Wheel of Fortune and destiny. And that high vibration, right, if it's going forward. From 6 to 7, from the Lovers to the Chariot, and also from 6 of family and 7 of the key, and 61, which is the 7 of swords, of taking a risk, with source support between them, 1-to-1, magician embodiment. These numbers start with 9 and end with 1 here. From 9 to 1, which is really the same. It's the all and the 1, just in different positions. The 4D bridge or gate and the 5D station, and then another gate to the 5 to 6, destined to co-create with and around the world. So there's this energy of 2 gates and the 5 to 6 and the 6 to 7. And now I'm getting the root 66 because that's also been coming up as the golden gates. Destined to co-create with and around the world. And this energy was very Cancer, Pisces, Capricorn, and Virgo, but also Sagittarius and Gemini. So basically the 3 axes of Virgo, Pisces, Cancer, Capricorn, and Gemini, Sagittarius, which includes all 4 mutables, and then 2 cardinals. And then we have 42 there, which is the 2 of Cups. And we have September coming up through 12, 21, 25. I looked up the numbers 610 and 611 in Gematria because they both came up. And the number 610, the first entry was Righteous God. And the other numbers along with 610 were 888, which is definitely the twins dance coming into union. And the third number was 148, which is miracles. And the number of hits was 13313. Very significant energy there. And remember, the 3s were the mothers, 3, 3, and then there's another 3, so we're bringing Gaia into it there. Oh, interesting. We have the 33 of the 4D bridge, the 1 and 1 on either side are the gate holders, and then the 3 being Gaia into that 5th even density, not just dimension. Number 6 under 610 was being matched for a reason, and the number with that one was 1176 with 196, which has been coming up like crazy for so many entries, and it did here as well. So it's the number I searched was 610, but it comes up with the other gematria entries, which are 1176 and 196. Being matched for a reason. The 7th entry is I is tame in the lions. That's also 1176 and 196. And you could look this up yourself in gematria. The 11th entry was God erases all the lies, 1176, 196 again. And number 12 was the stage is set. That wasn't the same numbers. And then 14 was not be needing glasses. Also came up as 1176, 196, which not needing glasses has been reported from after coming into union. People's eyesight getting better after being intimate. The 32nd entry was May 18th, so that's also coming up. And 2003 was the number of hits. So something about May 18th, 2003 may come up for you. The 39th entry was the Great London Fire, which is 1176, 196 again. And then the 45th entry was Thankfulness. Number 611, the first entry was Stellar Lumen. The second was Uranus. And Uranus just went into Gemini, right? And that's very stellar lumen, that energy, because Uranus in Gemini is genius. So stellar lumen is representing that light. The 7th entry was decode this. Decode this is not a game. That's also the next 4 are all 1176, 196. And this is a different number, it's 611. Number 7 is decode this is not a game. 8 was captain of the ship, God. Number 10 was the song, singing it. 11 was the era of the Messiah, okay? Number 12 was God doing great things, same number, 1176, 196. And all of the rest are the same number, 1176, 196, all of them. God doing great things. 13 is she is the one to hear, I God. 14 is magic card storage binder. And 16 is I being her first man. 17 is Cabal tried to sacrifice M. And 18 was be tired of pretending. And they were all the same number. Of course, different hits, but you can look that up. So graduation was a big topic that came up here. I just want to make sure I didn't miss anything here. There's also this energy of the periods of 23 to 32, which is then reflecting the 9 years prior to that, which would be 15 to 24. So there's this crossover of the feminine from 15 to 24, and then the masculine triggered to wake in 23 to 32, which they'll be awakening, continuing to awaken when they come into union with their feminine. So this was very interesting. There's been a lot of profound information coming through about the physical union here. So then I was going into the physical energies that were coming up along, with the earthquake and the tsunami. And I'd gotten some physical stuff done yesterday too. So that's another physical perspective. So yesterday had been the first day that I slept through the night, so I was feeling great, of course, because I didn't wake up in nerve pain, which was wonderful. But my old back injuries were acting up a little bit, which is okay, because that happens sometimes. If I hang upside down, that might make it a little sensitive, and it might burn for a little bit, for a day or two, and then it'll pass. So that I'm not worried about. Just the spasm as you can imagine, with the head and the neck and the shoulder, you can't do much with that. So some of my old injuries, I had like 5 different bulges that happened in my spine, and one of them was the L5 to the S1, so lumbar to sacral attachment, which is very common for back injuries, and a lot of people might have that. But that's, the bottom of your back connecting to your sacrum, where the SI joints come in to play as well, the articulation of both sides. But it was great. I wasn't having any headaches. The other thing the problem that came up with my spasm that I was having was I had to start taking Motrin because, I was so uncomfortable. I couldn't sleep. I tried anyway. So from prior to the 17th, the week of the 17th, I'd taken Motrin once. I try not to, but it doesn't make sense not to, because then you end up chasing the pain. So I think I took it once or twice that week, and then on the 18th, that started me having to take it continuously like an injury. So I'd taken Motrin 3 or 4 times a day, depending on what dose I was taking at the time, for that whole week. But then what was even worse was I was getting some GERD energy from the Motrin. And it wasn't Motrin, it was a generic ibuprofen, so I feel like it might have been the generic covering, because usually I don't have any issues with regular Motrin. But it was the worst feeling. It felt like, GERD when you have GERD, it can feel like a heart attack or those kind of issues. So not to mention ascension symptoms, which already can make your heart feel very stressed. This energy was just, I was feeling so much pressure, and although I could breathe fully, you don't feel like you can breathe in. So you're kind of like always trying to breathe in deeply to expand your lungs and try to get this uncomfortableness away. So I was on Motrin or ibuprofen for a week, and I stopped it. I just couldn't take it anymore. So I was just icing constantly to be able to sleep and that kind of thing. So I was going into the injuries in my back because they were calling me to a collective injury, and that had to do with this iron cross, because when I had my back injury many years ago, which happened in 13, and when I was recovering, because it took many years to get through this, I called, whenever I got upper back spasm, I called it my iron cross because it would go through my wings and then, of course, down my spine. But my major injury was my lower back, but then this would come into play, this iron cross. So this was focusing on the thoracic area, which is the chest area. And I'm showing you this picture that I drew of all of the pain points. So you see this cross in a woman's back, okay? And you also see 4 kites representing either shoulder and either hip. They're kites, 2 right side up and 2 upside down. And for me, it's more affected left more than right. So it's really those left kites and then the iron cross. But, you know, it can be reflected on both sides. And remember, the left is the feminine, the right is the masculine. And then these endpoints being the coccyx, and then was coming up to the third eye area at the top, affecting your sight, as we talked about eyesight and correcting your vision after intimacy of your union. So that was interesting. So I broke down thoracic because that was coming up so strongly. And thoracic is not only the thorax, which is the chest area, but Thora is also the Torah. And also comes up as TH, which is infinite, Orak, which is infinite or without form, came up the other day, the holy place or source of wisdom and divine communication via entities like angels or prophets. But of course, that has to do with spelling as well. When you speak or prophesize, you're speaking, and words is a spell, and that's why we're learning how to spell. The infinite prayer or sentence or spell or spelling be, right? I command that it is, so let it be. The spelling bee. So Thor also comes up with that, and Thora would be the feminine of Thor, which is the Norse god of hammer-like energy, thunder and lightning and storms, of groves and trees, and strength, the protection of mankind. But Thor also is the gate and the fool. So you see all these energies coming together. Oratio is prayer or sentence. Oracle is source of wisdom. The wise sentence or decision of great authority, the divine command, or the most holy place in the temple, or the temple itself, which can represent your body. And the T's come up here. I did a close-up picture here for you guys of the energy I was getting through these crosses. So the iron cross comes up as a circle, and then there'd be another cross that goes through the lower half of your body, where the sacrum is, or the ovaries and the womb. And that would represent the 2 circles of infinity. And then, of course, the tail would be a kind of an exclamation point at the bottom, you know, with a big fat exclamation point. And then the top, the head represents an ankh on that cross, except that represents a closed circuit. So even though a lot of people in the New Age community or the spiritual community of positive light could see the ankh as a positive thing, but here it was coming up still as the closed circuit of the cross, whereas you see the picture next to it, instead of the loop at the top, is the flame instead, which then opens up the circuit to ground not only down to the ground, to the earth, but also grounding to the stars as well, a continuous flow. And then there's two plus signs in each circle of the infinity in the middle, which then is emphasized as the line in the middle of the top circle would be the heart, to the next junction, which is the throat, which is an upside down T, which represents autonomy. And then the lower circle would be the right side up T, from the uterus to the sacrum. And the right side up tree has to do with the family tree. And then the tail below that, and the flame above that. And the tail can represent the ashes of the phoenix that rise to the flame. But this is an open circuit. So they're showing me this energy of wounding having been hung on the cross and burned at the cross, which I've actually seen both of those cells when I was in the south of France. When we were in the Mary Magdalene cave, I literally, when she was channeling, I went into a past life of being burned at the stake right on that cliff and being thrown off. I also saw as an infant being thrown off the cliff. And meanwhile, there was a group of women out there who were doing some kind of birthing ritual while they were waiting to come into the cave. And they just, at the same time I was in this trance, they screamed bloody murder because it was part of some thing they were doing out there. But meanwhile, we were meditating inside the cave. This entrapment was coming up of the angel wings, right? The cross is holding your wings, not allowing them to fly. And the sheath of the iron, right? The cover of the sword by the handler. That handle being the sword in your spine, right? Instead of the finger of God. The puppeteer's cross controlling you with this cross here that has a cover on it, a sheath, so that you can't move. You can't articulate your spine, your chakra system. You can't articulate your wings. The entrapment of angel wings and the sheath of the iron by the handler and the Knight of Swords. The puppeteer's handle stopping you from flying and grounding upward and downward, or in quote unquote what was coming up on lockdown. Because, you know, the spine represents support and the wings represent freedom. And this was coming up as the iron cross, the cementing of those things. The veil, the taking away of those things. The auric in thoracic is also to plow or work hard, or work one's butt off, to tire or exhaust someone, to have sex with, to decisively win a debate or argument through wit or thoughtful remarks, to abandon or destroy a place or infrastructure due to something being useless. And the energy of this organic system from the ash or the ass to the flame. It literally comes up as I am. So the two circles in the middle with the two plus signs inside of them are the upside down T and the right side up T with the I in the middle between them. I am ash and flame. As the autonomy of the upside down T and the family support of the right side up T, which can represent the divine feminine and the masculine, from 1 to 2 to 4 to 5, which 1 to 2 is the hanging man and 4 to 5 is the 5 of cups, grieving wisdom and coming together with the 3, which is missing from 1 to 2 and 4 to 5. The energy in the middle is the 3 of the mother, as I am the ash to the flame. And remember this cross affecting your sight. And so when the sheath is unsheathed and the wings are released, you then are able to take flight because you're able to ground. So you can't take full flight until you ground, just like I experienced in Vitality when all of a sudden Mother came through channeling through me when I screamed. She had first released this dark energy prior to this happening. She took me really low. It was a very demonic energy like Linda Blair, literally. And then, 5 minutes later, we were, as part of the program, I was screaming, and Mother just came through like with a vengeance to kind of clear the room, and then she was just pouring out her love for her children. But she first had to go very deep down in order to rise higher into that energy. So you see how all this is coming together. So I continued on with the injuries, right? So we have the sacrum and then the 2 SI joints around that and the 2 wings, which parallel each other, right? You have your wings in your back and then aligned above your SI joints. And SIJ means they or seek, and SIJ with an accent over the S also means to sew, stitch, base, suture, or do needlework. 2 to sew and 2 to wing also is wind or wind, 2 to sow and 2 to wind up or take flight, spin. And literally the definition of wing is shoulder knot. Literally. 2 to sow and 2 to wind or wind, to take flight, shoulder knot, which is a platform on either side of the bridge of the vessel, normally found in pairs. And what does that remind you of? The flying trapeze, the traps of your wings. The unseen areas of the stage, off stage, are also the wings, right? You're exposed on the bridge in between these two platforms where you're in the shadows. When you're in the wings, you're not seen. But as soon as you take that flying leap on the trapeze, you're exposed. You're fully exposed on stage. This is also a portable shelter, like a tent without sides. There is a covering here. And to improvise or wing it. It also means intoxicated, and it also means in Yola. Wing means cross. The cross to bear. So the two SI joints of 2 to sew, to do needlework, to stitch, and baste, and suture. And the 2 to cross. And now I'm getting the wings crossing each other at the shoulder knot. 2 to articulate hips, the SI joints. And to articulate means to speak clearly with. 2 to speak with their hips, which represents support. And 2 shoulder knots, tense from the suspension bridge across back, which can represent T7 as well. The flying trapeze, to ease your pain. You must take a leap of faith in the wings, or the angel, where you can't be seen. Intoxicating cross, to wing it across, as what gets exposed is the middle, wearing your heart on your sleeve, without a sheath or cover, or iron cross to climb across. The wings of the Kundalini, the Merkaba, inside the sheath, your sword, your truth, in flight of the butterflies, and the butterfly effect that sets you free, all the support you need, your heart filleted to soar higher and higher, right? So just like when you want something to grow, you splice it open a little bit to allow it to grow back. To break those iron chains, the key to pulling the sword from the stone is to remove the cover first, the story you've been sitting on, the pointed tail, to remember, or rejoin each time with those who dismembered you from yourself the first time. Sheathing and tying off wings. A need to release, but then balance again, ground and integrate as well. Where left is greater than right means the divine masculine is more able to take flight with more support. And it's time to now even the score, which isn't about competition, but scoring also has to do with filleting something open. Response able came up the other day as well, where someone's able to respond, but it's even more so the response, which is the sponsorship of able. To response able. Cain, to re-sponsor able. Now, the word ka from Cain, because there's no C in Sumerian, there's only K, so Ka not only means the soul in Merkaba, but here comes up in the Sumerian translation as the breath of Anu. And the AB in Sumerian is known as water or semen, comes up as Anu's command. So here we have the breath of Anu, which represents source energy, and then Anu's command, like the human, commanding it as so, using the breath of God to channel through you as your fractal of source, God's command. to know your power and use it. So Cain here is to re-sponsor Abel. The reed of rebirth. Again, this translation on Translator Maker, that's the site, Translator Maker, which is, I use the Sumerian, but there's other languages in there too. It's very cool how they do this. But the Sumerian translation of Cain to responsor Abel is the reed of rebirth to support the valiant Abel. And Abel is also the reed of Ki, restores the breath of Abel. And Ki represents earth, right? Like En-Ki, but it really doesn't mean earth. En-Ki means En, which En, which is Lord, but En, capital En for me is also JC. But En is Lord or Master Priest, which they were in Sumeria, all of those things. And Ki means the place or location, right? Or the land. And in our case, that would be earth. So Ki can represent earth, but it doesn't have to be. And of course, Ki can mean key as well, the key to something. So the reed of rebirth, and so here this word reed also is significant, to support the valiant Abel. The reed of Ki restores the breath of Abel. So now they're saying the reed of the location of Cain restores the breath of Abel, which the breath, of course, is source that comes through all of us. But can you connect to it? The reed of recompense, the shepherd's hand now guides the way of Abel. The reed of Abel, regranted by En-Ki, came up in the translation here. And as I said, En-Ki represents Ea, but En-Ki was a title, it wasn't his name. It meant Lord Master Priest of the location or his domain, which was earth at the time. The Master Priest of matter, a place, a land, where, remember, Enlil represents more, that's also a title, the Master of knowledge of sky, right? So here we're talking about the breath of God and then the manifestation into matter. And Enlil and En-Ki both represent those two aspects of Anu. The Master Priest of matter, a place, a land, whose reed returned to Abel. The staff who gets his cane back. But I was also getting the staff who cuts his cane back, and because I have problems with my neighbor and bamboo, so I kind of have bamboo on the brain. But it's coming up as the same energy, right? Because it's a hollow stem. And reed, guess what reed also means? R-E-E-D is another word for Cain, C-A-N-E. So Cain returns himself to Abel. Ka of the soul to Ab of semen, or water of the body of water. The hollow stems to stiffen that cover and measure as 6 cubits, literally from the measurements of Babylon, which meant 9 feet. There's controversy between whether that meant a really tall human like 6'6" to 9 or 9'9" as a giant. But reed is also R-E-E apostrophe D, which has to do with someone historically off the chain or crazed or tipsy, or perhaps the way a Ree or shaman native was seen to behave in a natural way. Easily excited or enraged, and there we have enraged, right? Lord, master, or priest of rage. And the riddler, to separate or throw off. The roe deer. The small, and notice row, the word, the letter row in Greek is a tall P. So here we have a giant P, which P for me in my pin also references the housing, right, with the cover on top and the masculine support. So the roe deer, and small, again, guilty, the king of chess or chest, the ace already, and these are all having to do with reed, to laugh and rye, which rye here can represent go have a beer, relax. The reed is to reason and ground, proportion to equip, supply, give speech, articulate, counsel, And of course, what's the next definition is red. And red everything has been coming up this month. Red Kachina, red dawn, red red kangaroo. At least 10 different reds came up for me. And then skate, driving, and journey also came up, which also can represent the flying trapeze, the bridge across. Right? So the 6 cubits, but it was plus a span, the way it was titled, 6 cubits and a span, which represents apparently about 9 inches. So again, whether it's 6'6" or 9'9", the reference of 9-foot cane came up in David and Goliath. Now Goliath was a Philistine warrior, and earlier, a couple months ago, I literally got Ismael Perez and Matthias Di Stefano as David and Goliath. And so here we have 9-foot cane as Ismael, and of course the story goes that David defeated the giant. As now the message is coming up that Goliath is Cain and the reed, now returning to Abel or David. All right, so the giant returns to his large self, right? So David kind of represents the inner child, where the giant represents your shadow, right? The fears that you need to face. And Ishmael in the Bible was the son of Abraham. So here we have Abe again, Ab, the water and the semen in the Hebrew Bible, the prophet of Islam. And Ismael Perez calls himself Amelius, the great white lion of Lyra, who now is returning himself to David or Matthias. It was very interesting because in that quick video on his channel about Amelius and the great white lion, which he shows himself with 3 lions coming to talk to him, he had clarified the role of the Anunnaki, which was very interesting too, because we have to be careful here, because when you're saying this is the truth, not this, you're choosing to side with one timeline when there are other timelines here. Just because one person's timeline, what they believe and see, which is not untrue, doesn't mean there's not another timeline on how we got here for somebody else's reality to have come true. So remember that. He had also said here that our real creators were not just from 450,000 years ago, but from millions of years ago, that our real creators are Syrians from Sirius B, which is fine because it can be both. Now remember, the story of the Anunnaki has to do with seeding the Neanderthals, which they don't know why the Neanderthals all of a sudden disappeared. But the story is that the Neanderthals, they were coming down here, the Anunnaki, and they needed a body of people to do their work for them, but they didn't want them to be as smart as they were, so they didn't want their full DNA. So they gave them the human DNA, but, blocked their full abilities to connect with Source. So this was the experiment for them, this race that they created. But that doesn't mean that humans didn't exist prior to that. I mean, Lyrans are our history. And but the Lyrans are also related to the Anunnaki, because the story with the Anunnaki is that the Lyrans and the reptilians came together to make peace for their 2 cultures, and mated the king and queens, basically, to become the Anunnaki, who then looked more human, but were more cold-blooded like the reptilians. So just some updates about that. There'll be more from the prior reads from this month, but I am getting a little long for this supposed short video. So I'll get to the next one soon. I'll see you guys soon. Rise and be loved. Bye.